Oh yeah, in this video I'm going to be replacing the Cambelt and the water pump on my MX5 NB. I've got a few bits to fit, and also I'll split this up into various videos, and yeah, let's show you what I've got. So I've got a Gates timer belt kit with idler pulley and tensioner. I've got a Gates water pump, got the gaskets and O-ring, got a new Woodruff Key, crank bolt, tensioner spring, Jass Performance locking tool, and also a new thermostat and gasket. So the first step is to jack up the car and put on axle stands, which I've already done. I have left the jack underneath just as a precaution. So next thing you need to do is make sure the engine's cold and remove the radiator cap and drain the coolant. So to do this, I'm going to get underneath the car and remove the bottom radiator hose. So the bottom radiator hose is this one on the left. If you've got aircon, it's just situated next to the aircon pipe. So you'll need to pinch this hose clip with some pliers. I'm going to use some water pump pliers. Slide the hose clip down, and then you can wiggle the pipe side to side to release it, and then pull off. And just make sure you got your container ready, because it will go everywhere. So let that drain, and then we can move on to the top, ready to remove the radiator. You can drain the coolant from this drain plug here, but being plastic, chances are that'll probably round, and you don't want this to damage the thread, because if not you will have to replace the radiator at that point. So while that's draining, the front intake pipe needs to be removed. So normally there's a Jubilee, but for some reason there's a cable tie on my one, which I will replace. There's a breather for the crankcase, and there's, I think that's about it on here, and then obviously the mass airflow sensor. Next is to remove the top radiator hose from the thermostat housing. You can also remove it from the top of the radiator. So it's either way, but just be careful that if this is the original radiator still, this plastic may be brittle. And make sure that your catch bottle or your tank is underneath to catch the coolant. Next up are the radiator support mounts. I'm going to spray these with some plus gas just to help release them. These are a 14mm. Before you do it completely, make sure you unplug the overflow. Last thing you need to do is unplug the radiator fan, and if you have aircon, that'll be just here on the top. So there's no real right or wrong order to do this bit. So you could remove the belts first, or you could start unplugging the wiring clips from the brackets to move all this away. So I'm going to be doing that first. So to do the power steering, you need to move the crank so the slot on the pulley is in line with the bolt. So to do that, you'll need a 21mm socket. Like that. This is quite tight, so just going to do it back up to loosen the bolt off. Also, while I'm here, I'll spray the adjuster bolt as well. So yeah, I was an idiot. I didn't put a span on the other end of the bolt. So obviously doing it from here, it just kept spinning. So this has now been slackened off. The nut is pretty much on the end. You can hear the bolt moving. This bolt's now slackened, and with this tensioner bolt slackened, you should be able to move the belt or move the pump up and down. So let's do that a little bit more. And then the belt should come off. So inspecting it, it is just now starting to crack. So yeah, worth doing. Now onto the alternator belt. So before I slacken off these bolts, I'm just gonna undo the 3 nuts that are on the water pump pulley, just to make it a little bit easier. So to stop the crank from turning, put the 21mm socket on, and then you can undo with the 10mm, he says. Cool. So I've used my breaker bar on here. So as I'm turning counterclockwise, that's pushing the bar against the framework of the engine bay, stopping it from turning. There we go. Don't want to remove them fully yet. So you got a pivot bolt at the top, one at the bottom, but the head of the bolt is around the back, which is going to be a nightmare to get to. And then you've got the adjustment bolt here as well. Right, so the one at the bottom here, my socket is too big to fit onto it. There's something in the way behind it. I think it might be the inlet manifold brace behind the alternator, so I'll have to use a spanner. So I'll just show you underneath the car. That's that one there, you can see where I've sprayed plus gas. So yeah, there is the brace behind the alternator where it's not a lot of room. Steering rack, subframe also in the way, so yeah, it's going to be fun. After much swearing, finally managed to get this bottom pivot bolt slackened. So with this pivot bolt here, slackened as well, and the adjustments bolt wound near enough all the way out. You can now move the alternator to remove the belt. So just caught up the top here. There we go. So that's alternator and water pump, and that doesn't look too bad. So we'll change them anyway. Right, next up, just need to remove these water hoses off the thermostat housing. And then there's 4 bolts on the crank pulley, and then the main crank bolt itself. So I've already sprayed this with plus gas. So while that's soaking in, I'll just remove these. Had to remove that because that wasn't coming off. So this should now undo. Here we go. So next is to do the 4 bolts. And then next is to do the crank bolt itself. So I use a breaker bar. With the 4 10mm removed from the crank pulley, I've unwound the bolt near enough out so I know it comes out okay. Next up is to remove the 3 water pump pulley bolts. So next up is to remove the rocker cover and spark plugs so we can gain access to the timer belt, the cams and the covers. So to remove the rocker cover, there's various bolts around the edge and in the center. So we'll remove this crank breather. Next up is to remove the ignition leads and coils and to disconnect these plugs. Once you've got all the bolts out, there's a breather pipe coming off here. There's a clip for the loom here. Just need to push this in and it releases up. So I think the last bit is the banjo bolt on the very end of the VVT. So this is a 19. When you remove this bolt, just be very careful of the copper washer on the other side. Bit fiddly to get, so that's one, and then that's the bolt. So I believe that is now ready to lift up. Because of the VVT, you need to make sure that you lift the rocker cover directly up, which may take some wiggling. There we go. Oh no, we're caught on the plug just on the end here. And it should now release.